In the office, baby. Going up.
Trauma alert, Category 1, Trauma Y, ETA, Stat. Trauma alert, Category 1, Trauma Y, ETA, Stat.
Rapid response to room 3C. Rapid response to room 3C. Rapid response to room 3C.
And welcome to Trauma Y and Crash. On this episode, we're going to talk about the beginnings. Where do we come from? How do we get to this point? So, I'll start off. I've been a nurse over 25 years. I originally went to college. I went to West Point. So my career path was totally different. I was going to school to be an engineer. Nuclear engineering was what I was majoring in. And my goal was I wanted to fight, jump out of planes. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, was what I was going to specialize in. But I wanted to do all the military stuff, and I was planning on doing a whole career. But knee injury said no, and so I ended up going to Ohio State. And when I got there, I was majoring in engineering as still. And one of the things that was different with me is I got engaged. And then my wife, my future wife at the time, got ill and was diagnosed with lupus. And we were going into our senior years at OSU, and I had to make some life decisions. They diagnosed her and said she had less than 2 years to live. She continued on with her nursing career, ended up getting her master's in nursing. But at that time, I was actually getting ready to start doing an internship, and I was going to be doing a lot of traveling with what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a computer engineer. I wanted to do a lot of traveling, security work, things like that. So I knew I wouldn't be able to do that and help take care of her. And I had horrible care in the very beginning. Every time I take her to the ER, they'd be like, we can't find nothing. We don't know what's wrong. We don't know what's wrong. But she was obviously sick. So then I kind of lost it and told them, I can't imagine how they let this roll. And I'm an ER nurse, and I never would have let this roll. But I literally walked up to the physician's desk and I said, you know what, this is our 5th visit to this ER to figure out what's going on with her. I want 5 doctors over there, and I want y'all to figure out what's going on, because it doesn't make any sense that y'all don't know what y'all doing. And I wasn't very nice. I wasn't rude. I was very direct. I was not happy. And one of the docs, who was a resident at the time, ended up being president of the system. He went over and looked at her, looked and saw what was going on, and said, hey, I think she might have lupus. Let's test her for lupus. And we figured out what was going on, and that's when we got the prognosis. So me trying to figure out what I was going to do, one, I knew I needed to do something to help take care of her. So I switched to nursing. Long story short, I switched to nursing, and I put me exactly where I was supposed to be. Loved it. Got in this field. I've always been a people person. I like helping people. I just wanted to do it with computers. My parents were medical. My mom was a nurse for a long time. She was a really good nurse, was eligible or voted on to be in Cleveland Clinic's Hall of Fame for nurses. So she was real good. My dad was a medic in the service. They were very, very much in the healthcare, and they kept telling me, why don't you be a doc? You should do something in the healthcare field. Be a doctor. And I never wanted to be a doc. I didn't want to go in the healthcare field. I was like, I didn't want those. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to really work with people like that. Give me a problem. You got a problem, give it to me. I'll fix it. I'll take it, work in the lab, work on my computers. We'll figure it out. I'll solve it. That's what I wanted to do. But then I got into this career and I loved it. And I can say pretty much almost every day I have loved my job. Now, is there things that I've hated? Absolutely. You know, when you're elbow deep in a code brown, you're really not thinking about how much you love your job. Or, you know, hosing down the third person in your shift with bed bugs. You're not really thinking about how much you love your job. But on some of the other things, I absolutely do. So I became a nurse. I started out on med surg. I did my research. I started out originally in the lab. I worked in the lab for a while. And I got to look at the lay of the land at the hospital I was at because I wanted to figure out what was my next move. Because I really wanted to work in the ER or be a flight nurse. So I did that. I was working as a fleet bow. And there was a unit that was really big. It had 78 beds. It had a step-down respiratory unit. And they averaged a code every 3 days. And I looked at that unit and I was like, that's where I want to go. That's where the action is. Because I always was going up there for codes and things like that. And so I was like, that's where it would be a great place to go learn. And the other thing I looked at is all the nurses in the unit. And I was at a facility. I worked at Grant Medical Center in downtown Columbus. I worked at a facility that the unit nurses were fantastic. Actually, most of the nurses I worked with. But when they knew I was in nursing school, so I'd be in the unit doing my thing, and they'd call me over. Hey, come listen to these lungs. Tell me what you hear. Go look at this. This is what's going on. Explaining stuff. I had a lot of mentors who looked out for me. And they all, or not all of them, but most of them came from this floor. So I went there to work, and it was a great place to start because even being in the step-down unit, I quickly moved up to working in the step-down unit. That step-down was the equivalent of most places' critical care. We did weaning. We did all the weanings. If you're a problem wean that they couldn't get you off the vent, I was like, bring it on. I'll wean them. I'll figure it out. Give me a few days. We'll get you off the vent. I learned a lot and eventually became one of the charge nurses on the unit and things like that. My next move, I was going to go to the units, work ICU or CCU. And actually, I was going to put an application in the CCU so I could get my experience to go to the ER because back then you needed at least 3 years of ICU or CCU experience to work in our ER. And I happened to see the manager and one of the night charge nurses. And they talked to me and were like, why don't you go ahead and interview? Don't put that application in just yet. Why don't you go ahead and interview with us? And there was a waiting list. So you would interview and they tell you they want to hire you and tell you where you're at on the list. And when that position came up, they'd call and see if you want your spot. So, but I looked up and a spot opened up quickly that they offered me. And I was one of the first people they took with no ICU, CCU experience. So they put me through a grueling orientation. I had Ed Wright, was a great preceptor. He drilled me, made me learn policy and procedure. But all the nurses I worked with were really, really good. I worked in a great department and I was home, you know. So, and I stayed there for 24 years. I've done every role in that department, assistant manager, charge nurse. I did almost all of our trauma education for a long time. I moved up and then I moved back down. I was equivalent to a clinical manager and they eliminated our positions. And so I could have moved up and became salary or moved down. I moved down. I said, I'll do charge, but it would have been too much of a pay cut. But I did that. And while I was doing that, I always had other jobs on the side. I floated at one of the other systems and I was in their float pool and I worked all over, including the units. I took travel assignments within the city region, not too far out, and I worked most places as critical care. I did hospice. I did home care. I became an educator for one of the other facilities, so I did that. At one point, I was full-time at my main job, and I was doing overtime there. Plus, I do another 20 to 30 hours. At one point, I was doing 30 hours a week at my second job. Then I was also doing home care. So I've always had jobs. I've always worked multiple jobs. I was always working a lot, and but my heart has been ER. ER was home, and that's where I've stayed. And I've really gotten into the groove with trauma. I do a lot with our trauma education. I help teach all of our trauma classes. I used to do a one-on-one trauma class in the ED, where we would go over all the skills, and you'd set up all the different things we would use. Like if you had to drop a chest tube to get set up, intubations, thoracotomies, DPLs, and things like that. We would actually do hands-on, and we'd set them up and do things like that. Eventually, I graduated to doing more, and I did a lot of work in the Sims lab. I love the Sims lab. I am Mr. Scenario. I could go all day. I would love to be able to work in the Sims lab all day and just help educate people. I think that has been one of my talents, but that's been kind of what my life career has kind of been. And also, at the end of that, I ended up starting my own company. I was headed to work, on my way to work, and there was a bad accident in front of me. Stopped at the accident. There was like 5 or 6 cars, but it was bad. And it was one of those, you know how when you're going to work, if you're an ER person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're driving to work, you'll see something happen, or the helicopter flies over you, and you go, oh, there's my first patient. You know how you already see tonight. If you drive past a couple medics on the way in that are stopped for MVCs, you're like, okay, I know it's gonna be busy. And it happened right in front of me, and I see people half hanging out of the car. It's bad. And I get up and I grab my kit and I go over, and we ended up with 5 traumas out of this scene, and 3 of them were level 1s. So I went and I looked to see who looked to be worse off, and I started taking care of those people. And then civilians kept coming over going, hey, do you need something? I got a first aid kit. And they would bring me their kits. And, you know, have you ever went to a restaurant and you're really, really hungry, and you order a meal and they bring you like a little piece of meat and like a little string of vegetable, and that's the whole meal?
$500.
Yeah, and then they charge you more for it too. That's exactly what happened. They brought me Band-Aids, and I had people with, like, we ended up with, like I said, 3 level 1s. So these people were truly injured. And at the time I was taking care of somebody, she had a femur fracture and a couple other assorted injuries. She had busted the window, so her head was bleeding. I mean, so, you know, what am I gonna do with a little Band-Aid? But it made me look at what their kits are, because, you know, I stop 3-4 times a year, easy. I see something, I stop at the scene, I help until the medics get there, and as soon as they get there, I'm out. Well, this made me think about what's in these kits. So I had worked on, I knew what I wanted in my kit, so I made my own kit. I never looked to see what you could buy commercially as far as a whole kit in itself. And I was shocked at how poor the kits were, or how hugely expensive they were. And so I saw opportunity, and I was already doing a lot of education. I do speaking engagements. I'll go and I'll go talk to different groups. I've been able to do things like be a speaker at the LPN state convention. I've spoken there. I've spoken at their student conventions and things like that. So I've always had this company on the side, but I decided to grow and make kits because I researched it and saw that I could produce top quality kits at a much cheaper price than what you could find anywhere online. So that's what I did, and that's where this company really took a start. And I have been doing that. I've been going about 1.5 years until right as COVID was hitting, or right before it really hit us. I had an opportunity. I had a nice offer for some office space and some other requests for my skills outside of our state that really spoke to me as a good opportunity. And so I took that. And that was really where McCary Cares Consulting took off. So since then, I've been working on developing more products. Now I include apparel. I have apparel on my website that you can get. I have multiple kits, and that's kind of where I really got going till we get to now. So the next step in that evolution was podcasts and YouTubes, and so that's how we got here today. How about you?
Well, mine won't be as long. My name is Lonnie Hall, and actually, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I started off at, I went to Ohio State University, and as he said, I was in engineering also. I was an electrical engineer. So started in that, kind of worked my way a couple of years, and then kind of, we'll say, took a couple of years off and went back home. And did some odd jobs, and then a friend of mine, his wife, talked me into thinking about going into nursing, which is something that, you know, like I said, I never had any idea of doing. But at the time, the jobs that I were doing wasn't paying the bills, so I went into nursing, and it was a very good choice for me. I've been doing nursing for over 22 years. And for the most part, I like it, enjoy it. I won't say I enjoy it every day, because some days I'm happy to go home. I've started off in a place called Columbus Community Hospital, which is no longer there. It was a nice lady by the name of Wanda Cash Dollar that gave me my first job. She was very, very strict, but she was a very good nurse.
Nice lady.
Very nice. Miss her deeply. I remember the first time as a floor nurse, I made a mistake with my meds, and she scared the crap out of me. She's like, you know, you need to do your job. Either, how did she put it? Take a dump or get off the toilet or something like that. A weird saying. She was from the country, and it was a weird saying, but she made her point, and you know, it made me a better nurse. Scared the crap out of me, but it made me a better nurse. From that, I went to, I think, a couple other hospitals, and I ended up where I am today. And now I'm a rapid response nurse. I worked maybe 10 years in ICU, 5 years of step down in the ICUs that I worked in.
Came and worked with me for a little while.
Yeah, I did trauma for about a year and a half, and then kind of did a kind of an on-call thing there. And then I went to a couple of other hospitals, and ICU was always something that I liked. I remember one of the guys I worked with, which he always told me, if you let your patients code, you're not doing your job, which I take to heart. It doesn't mean your patients won't code, but if you start with the idea that they're not going to code and you're going to do everything possible to keep them from coding, it keeps you at a higher level, at least to me. So for ER was okay. I enjoyed ER, but for me, ICU was a little bit better because I like to keep them alive and get them over the hump. Not saying that they don't.
Our
But
patients probably talk too much. That's what that is.
not that I say that I sedate my patients.
He worked with me for a while, and then he's like, you know, he goes, I just like my ICU patients better. I don't know if it was because I worked in an ER where it was on and popping. Patients were violent, trying to escape, was wrestling, get punched. Yeah.
I like mine that's calm, cool, collective in the bed. And it's nighttime, it's nap time. No need to be yelling and kicking and screaming. That's not necessary.
And see, that's not me. I enjoy working in the chaos. So
I had a little critical, well, it's critical thinking, but a little more critical thinking with the docs.
I like critical thinking in the war zone, so to speak.
See, I don't need to. I don't need to kick in and screaming.
You know,
Just
anybody can critically think when everything else is quiet. You know, when you got other people yelling and you got a psych patient trying to escape and you're trying to figure out why this patient's trying to die, that's true critical thinking under pressure.
let's say I need a little less stress. Put it that way. At least that kind of stress. My mom was a LPN for most of her life. She always wanted to be an RN, but didn't get the chance with us to go back to school. So some of my aunts were also LPNs. So there's been nurses in my family for years. Like I said, nursing was not my first choice, but it has done very well for me. It's helped me travel around the world, so I can't complain. I enjoy my patients. Some of the best things you get from nurses when people say thank you. I'm sure he get that. You don't get it a lot. He will say the same thing. But when your patients tell you thank you, or family members tell you thank you, it kind of makes your job worthwhile. And especially when you have someone that come in that's critically ill and you're not sure that patient is going to make it, and you get to watch them walk out the hospital. That satisfies. It's very satisfying as far as the nursing. Other than that, like I said, I'm from Cleveland. I'm a Browns fan, always will be. It hurts sometimes, but I still a Browns fan.
Why you say that? It's not that bad. I don't understand what you're talking about. We're Browns fans, you know? Browns are like family. You know, sometimes you're mad at your brother. Sometimes you want to choke him. But it's okay. They're your brother. You get over it, roll. Browns are like family. Sometimes they suck. But they're still my team.
Yeah, you can put your family out. You can put your brother out and don't let him come back no more.
Well, you can turn the TV off, but next Sunday you turn it back on.
Anyway, Cavs fan. Hey, I was there for the championship. It was one of the most proudest times. What I was most proud of is that we didn't tear up the city. We were champions, and we treated the city with respect and weren't like hooligans that everybody else thought we was going to be. They thought we was going to burn down the city once we won the championship, but
I celebrated a little bit. I yelled. I was happy, and then I went to bed.
Yeah, that's what the older people do. They go to bed at a certain time. But yeah. I don't know what else to tell you about me. I love what I do.
So yeah, the other thing is we both know that if you looked up nurse in the dictionary, you will not see our faces. And we're going to save that topic for another time. But before we go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like, smash that like, let us know what you think. If there's things you want us to talk about, please let us know. And one more time, I'm going to talk about our giveaway. We're going to have a giveaway on August 1st. We're giving away a set of trauma shears. We're also going to give away a cat tourniquet and one of our hero shirts. I'm wearing one of our Trauma Y hero shirts right here. We have two types. But to be eligible for this, you have to do a couple things. Number one, you have to like and subscribe to our channel. Number two, you have to go to Chip EDRN on Instagram and follow me. The other thing you'll have to do is tag 2 people. So tag 2 people after you follow me, subscribe to our channel, and pound on the like, and you will be eligible. And every month we will we'll have drawings on different equipment, certs, different things like that. Very good when I've done it before. And we'll see you next time.
Stay safe.
You in the office, baby. Going up.
Trauma alert, Category 1, Trauma Y, ETA, Stat. Trauma alert, Category 1, Trauma Y, ETA, Stat.
Rapid response to room 3C. Rapid response to room 3C. Rapid response to room 3C.